Welcome to the Pitmaster Podcast. We're barbecue competition competitors that aim to share information, advice, tips, and tall tales about our favorite pastime. Head over to pitmasterpodcast.com for all things Pitmaster, or follow us on your favorite social media platform. And now, here are the hosts of the Pitmaster Podcast, the two-time Grand Champion, SCA World Champion finalist, and barbecue specialist of Smoke Ain't No Joke Barbecue, the Anthony Lujan, and the 24-time Grand and Reserve Grand Champion, Reserve World Grand Champion, Windover High Roller Champion, and the founder of Pitmaster Barbecue Supply Company stores in Utah, the old man himself from Big Johnson's Barbecue, Jesse Johnson.
What up, Pitmasters? How's it going today on this lovely, I guess, Sunday here in the hot state of Utah?
Yeah, we go from winter to summer, back to winter, and back we got summer again. Man, it was a hot weekend.
Yeah, it sure was. Well, Jesse, we have Sean from What's in the Pot. He's a very experienced cook. He actually lives down in Florida. He's does a lot of culinary cooking, you know, from anywhere from into a professional kitchen to a smoker out back. But he does have a lot of that, I guess, Caribbean flair on everything that he does. So we'll get into that interview with him, ask him all the crazy questions. But Jesse, we cooked a contest yesterday.
How did you feel? How did you feel your cook went?
I feel like it went okay. I wasn't expecting to win just because I haven't cooked a KCBS in probably 3 years ish. Yeah. So our ribs actually was a little bit better because I kind of did a practice run, but it was just kind of all over the place. It was hot. We had some heavy hitters out there that came and hit home runs. It was a fantastic contest.
They didn't crush though. It's not like they crushed the teams. I mean, so LC Barbecue was our grand champion. We're talking about the Norute Barbecue Championships put on by Pitmaster Supply Company, Wasatch Front Kia, Harmon's, and Green Mountain Grills. It was a big event. We had 29 teams. We're supposed to have 30, but we had 29 teams all the way from Florida, 4 teams from Texas, several teams from California. We had Idaho, Colorado, Nevada. Do we have any Wyoming? No Wyoming, but we had several from Colorado. And then a bunch of Utah teams, and then 4 700s.
Yeah.
And fourth, third, and second was separated by less than a point.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Tell you what, that's a good contest. And we had 3 perfect scores, one by a Utah team, one by barbecue got a perfect score in chicken.
Yep.
And then we had 2 perfect scores in brisket. With Vernon and Luton out of California, he got a perfect score, and then the Texas Smoke Whisperers got a perfect score. Not a perfect, but man, who cares? Perfect score. Right. A 180 is a 180, baby, and a 700 is a 700.
Exactly.
I've only had 2 perfect scores and I thought I'd get them in pork at some point in time. But I got them in ribs, but I've never had a 700.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. There was one angel table, man, and I didn't get lucky enough to hit that table, but it's all good.
There was?
Yeah, there was one angel table.
I haven't dug through the scores or anything yet. I'll do that on Monday, and we'll see if that. Well, that's the thing when you have 29, 30 teams, it's 5 tables, so you have that's that risk. In that size of a contest, whether you hit the table of death or you hit that, like you said, the angel table where it boosts up your numbers. So,
yep,
it's the luck of the draw in the KCBS.
Right. And man, I don't have the scores in front of me, but there is a contest down in Richfield too, an SEA event that a lot of cooks went to as well. And man, apparently that there's a lot of crazy scores down there too. A lot of, ties and everything like that too. So that event was great as well. I'll get those scores and we can talk about them later. But
ties, man, those ties are hard with the SCA. And then we got a couple of contests coming up in Utah. We have the Cache Valley Smokeout. That'll be next month. during the 24th of July celebration here in Utah. And then the KCBS just approved another contest because Norute was going to be on auto, baby. It's like, come on, let's go. Let's send somebody straight to it. LC would have been happy with that.
Right.
But blazing up the 47, that's a $20,000 contest. It was half full as of Saturday afternoon. Only taking 18 teams, but it's 20 grand. If I wasn't shooting tack with my son, man, I'd be trying to get in that wallet. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did pull it up too. I also want to give Chuck Luria a shout out for winning the Pitmasters podcast belt down there in the Severe Seer. What that is he cooked 4 steaks and the best overall score makes you kind of the state champion of that contest. So he took the Pitmasters podcast title belt down there as well. So
very nice.
Yeah, shout out to that dude. But yeah, we got to talk about those other events. And then if you're traveling this weekend, heading to Boise, good luck and go out there and show out, and hopefully we can make that.
It's not Boise, it's Blackfoot.
Blackfoot, sorry, yeah, Blackfoot.
Yeah, Blackfoot. That's a different direction. Blackfoot's you're only a 2-hour drive to Blackfoot from Salt Lake City. Boise's a good 5-6 hours. So Blackfoot, Idaho, that should be a fun contest. Wish I was cooking that one. You know, it was like I have family that I got that. Your family in the way, but that family comes first in my world. So we got our annual camping trip, and then I shoot tack with my boy. So it's like there's 2 contests. I haven't cooked a contest in 2019. You're talking about you were 3 years. I'm 2019 since I've cooked a contest. I'm just like, oh, man. I got that itch. I'm kind of twitching.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we just need to get you on the road. That's the only option.
I know. Pack up the trailer. Let's roll.
Right. All right, well, let's just talk to Sean and let's see what this is all about. Let's talk about his flair, and let's just ask him all the questions and see if he has all the answers.
Awesome. That's going to be fun.
Yep.
Got some good questions for him.
Word. Let's get into it.
We call it Thermapen 1, the first true 1-second cooking thermometer. Its unprecedented speed means Thermapen 1's responsiveness approaches the speed of thought. Because when you're plating the perfect menu or smoking the perfect side of barbecue, you don't have time to think about how your instant read thermometer is accurate to 0.5 degrees in 1 second or less, or how rugged and waterproof it is, or how big, elegant and bright the backlit display is. You'll just know it works, because our perfection powers your perfection. Seek perfection with Thermapen 1.
All righty, let's get Sean onto the stage here. What's up, Sean?
How's it going, guys?
Good. Welcome to the show. You a Thermapen 1 user? Did you see that ad?
I did see that ad. Actually, I don't have a Thermapen 1.
Whoa.
Fix that, Anthony.
No, we got to get that taken care of.
I definitely got to get one. That ad intrigued me even more.
Good.
Other than your grill and your meat, I think a Thermapen 1 is one of the best tools that a cook can have in their arsenal. Mm-hmm. Just make sure you're so accurate, make sure your food's safe. That's the other part of it. So
yeah. Well, Sean, let's just get into it, man. Let's give an overview. Let's talk about, when you first, grabbed some tongs or a spatula in the kitchen to today. So just give us the laydown. How'd you get into cooking, and how'd you get into this whole, crazy life of barbecue and then kitchen in the pot?
Well, I guess for me, how I started into barbecue was pretty much, or even just cooking in general. As a kid, if growing up, I would always, just make the basic stuff like, 8, 9 years old, eggs, toast, whatever. And then eventually, as I got a little bit older, coming home from school, if no one's home, making ramen, messing with it, trying different things. And then I got to the point where my mom would be like, if you don't like what I cook, then make your own food. So I'm like, all right. So I would stick around the kitchen, see what my mom would make or what my dad would make. And then eventually it just kind of grew on me. Being of Trinidadian background, Caribbean background, Sundays is a big meal day for us. So usually on a Sunday, both my parents are in the kitchen cooking. So just generally seeing them or just eventually helping them, prep or like season meat, different things like that, kind of got me into cooking food. and then just learning to cook for myself. I would say maybe around 12, I would say I would consistently cook for myself, or if I had like cousins over or whatever, and we're like, oh, we're hungry, let's just eat something, just whip up something, whether it was like ramen or like hot dogs and things like that. And I think probably around that age, I started like doing basic stuff on the grill, like hot dogs and burgers. And it just kind of went from there. And then everyone kind of just knew that I knew how to cook. If we had, if we went out to hang out at a friend's house, well, as we got older, everyone, we'd go, I'd say early 20s, we'd go buy groceries, and I'll end up barbecuing, or I'll end up making whatever it is that they wanted to make. I think a lot of my friends at the time, they didn't want to, in the Caribbean, every time if you get chicken or beef, we usually wash and clean it, rinse it out with a little bit of vinegar, a little lime juice. So a lot of friends wouldn't want to go ahead and, touch raw chicken or cut chicken up. Like if you got a whole chicken, you want to debone it or chop it up. So I got used to doing that. And then eventually it just kind of just stood from there. I always just end up cooking for myself when I started working, just meal prepping, things like that. Barbecue wise, I would say I always did barbecue, but just the basics. I would say maybe around 2016, 2017. My wife and I, we bought a house, and I had a regular gas grill, and I wanted to kind of step it up. So I ended up getting one of the really big Oklahoma Joe's smokers from, I think, Lowe's or Home Depot or one of those places. And that's what kind of got me into understanding the differences of like using a smoker versus then just regular grilling. And it kind of stuck from there. And I kind of started getting used to, looking up different recipes on YouTube, looking up different things on how to, be a better, I guess, grill master in a sense. And I think Barbecue Pit Masters and some of those other shows just started coming out on TV. So I'd watch it and kind of get some tips and kind of understand, the differences, where you're using an offset smoker. Because to me, before that, everything was either gas or charcoal, pretty much put your meat on, cook it, and that's it. So just understanding, how to do ribs properly, how to do, smoke whole chicken or turkey, things like that. Fast forward a bit, my wife and I, we moved to Florida. I didn't take the grill with me because that thing's like 300 pounds. So we didn't
It's a
we didn't
monster.
take we didn't take it in the move. I ended up selling it. But when we moved here, I was like, okay, I think I would say that's probably right around the pandemic. The whole pellet grill kind of wave started kicking off a lot more. And I guess just because, the pandemic. And I was looking into a pellet grill, and I saw Traeger, I saw Green Mountain, I saw Rec Tech, and the price range pretty high. So I'm like, let me find something within a budget that I can, see if I actually like it, or do I just go back to getting a regular smoker. I ended up finding Z Grills online, and I was like, all right, cool. It checked out. I started using it, and I got familiar with it. Started posting the recipes. I guess rewind a little bit within 2017, and till then, I actually got laid off from a job that I was at, and everyone's like, "Why don't you open a restaurant? This is your opportunity to open a restaurant, or this is your opportunity to open a food truck." By trade, by profession, I'm a social media manager. So I did social media on the customer service side and customer and branding, posting ads, different things like that. So I'm like, well, I'm very familiar with social media. I've been doing social media pretty much since it started because, as Anthony knows, I'm a DJ as well. So social media was always something I've done. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just start a YouTube channel. I was home. My wife was working. I'm like, I have nothing to do. I cook dinner almost every day. So I'm like, let me just start recording these videos. So that's what created What's in the Pot. That's where What's in the Pot came from. That's where it started. So, and the barbecue recipes at that point were still very minimal, very small. But once I got the Z Grills pellet grill, I started posting, and their social media team kind of took traction of my videos. Did like an unboxing, did different things, how to use the pellet grill. And to me, still pellet grills are fairly new. But I love the fact that, for me, sometimes if I'm doing a set of ribs or I'm going to do a brisket or something like that, you can set the temperature, at least it's maintainable, than having to go out there and consistently check I would say, consistently check the fire, check the temperature. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, it's a pellet grill, it's a toy. To me, I love it. I love using it. And that kind of led me into the direction of posting more barbecue videos and using my background of being from the Caribbean and using our flavors into barbecue and saying, well, you know what? Everyone does ribs a certain way. Why don't I do jerk ribs? Or why don't I do like a jerk pulled pork? Or in Trinidad, we use a lot of culantro. So when we make a green seasoning, very similar to like a Puerto Rican or Dominican sofrito, very similar ingredients. We season a lot of our meat, almost 99% of our meat, no matter if it's a stew, a curry, or barbecue. We season our meat with that. So I'm like, let's put that out there to the world, because if you're from the Caribbean, that's what we do when we cook our food. So I'm like, let me put that out there to the barbecue world of like, this is a Trinidadian style barbecue. This is what we do. So I started incorporating that into my cooking videos. And eventually I end up being contacted by a rep from Traeger. And since then I've been, I guess, Team Traeger since 2021, end of 2021. And I've never looked back. I love it. I don't think I would switch back to another grill. I think I like the fact that I think I frequently use, I have a charcoal, I have a Weber, but gas or regular stick smoker, sometimes I don't have the time, especially now I have a toddler. So I don't have the time to spend all day out, making sure and checking the cook. So for me, the Traeger works perfectly.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Especially, if you're on the move, especially have small children, there's nothing wrong with pellet grills. I don't think there's one actual like barbecue guy that's into barbecue that doesn't own a pellet grill, because that's so much easier sometimes when you're on the move. And like some of the higher end Traegers, if you're really on the move and you have to cook a meal for your family and work at the same time, they have Wi-Fi technology where you can build those, well, it's already built in, and you can just monitor that way. So and Jesse's a huge pellet grill salesman, his company relies on pellet grills as well. So there's nothing wrong with them, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I helped design the last round of Traegers when we were doing the Traeger thing, and then we sell Camp Chef, and GMG's our main line. We're the only platinum dealer in Utah. We sold like over 300 grills last year. So yeah. And we teach people to cook overnight all the time. You're not going to be able to cook overnight by staying up every 45 minutes checking your offset. It's like, oh, I got to manage that fire,
Yeah.
So.
Or your drum, like at a competition.
Yeah. Lots of drums this weekend. Lots of drums.
Yeah. Well, Sean, you contacted. You said it a little bit. We should just flip this whole podcast and just take it from barbecue to DJing, because Jesse's actually a DJ as well.
I've been DJing. Well, now you're gonna make me really feel like the old man. I've been DJing since junior high. I was the kid in the H Hall at Highland Junior High with a boombox. That's how early I started DJing this in the late 70s, bro.
Yeah,
junior high was 90s for me, but.
Yeah. Well, did you ever have any black 1200s?
I did. Actually, my first turntables were the black Geminis, and then I worked my way up to 1200s. But yeah, I mean, I've been DJing probably 25 years now. So since late 90s is when I kind of started getting into it. When I got into college in 99, that's when I guess I would say I went professional and was pretty much doing clubs every weekend. I think now as a DJ, I just do pretty much, I stick to, as also being a dad of a toddler. I'm in my 40s. I'm not going to the club every weekend.
Right.
So I stick to right now. I do a few different stations on Sirius. The Joint. Cool. Well, it used to be the Joint, which was the dance hall station. Sometimes Shave 45, and then more frequently, Sirius XM Fly, which is like the 90s, 2000s throwback hip hop and R&B. And I've done some other stuff for a few other radio stations in Boston, Michigan, like mix shows, or like if they have long weekend mixes, they'll ask me, hey, do you want to be part of the mix weekend? So things like that. I love radio, to be honest. So
I started on a college radio station hosting a show called Sunday Night Jams, nothing but hip hop and R&B. And then I went on to run ZHT in Salt Lake City. still rhythmic in nature, and then like you said, DJing on the weekends and all the clubs, and hauling all those speakers. And I still
I know. I love the
No.
technology now. See, just like
Yeah.
pellet grills, I love the technology with DJing
Exactly.
because I just walk
Oh.
with my laptop. I don't have to walk with crates. Don't have to walk with anything like back in the day.
I used to have
yeah.
30,000 records is what I had in my arsenal at one point in time.
Jesus, imagine how much you can get out of those records now.
Yeah, well, we sold a bunch of them, but
Yeah.
now it's all on a hard drive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah, the reason why I kind of brought that up too, slightly, is because I feel like, back to the pellet grill thing, you could set up a pellet grill in your backyard, have friends over, have a pool party, have a backyard party, you have your music blasting because you know how to control that as well. It's just the simplicity of being able to be a pellet grill cook, like Logan from Right on the Q podcast, he said, even with drums, the technology is there too. You can control like a pellet grill. So the technology is so awesome with barbecue now, and it makes it so simple as well.
ThermoWorks has that billows technology that you hook up with one of their smokes and whatnot, and you can put a coupler right, like if you're going to Gateway or a Salt City drum, and you just let that fan control your temperature. Man, it's just like it takes a lot of that guesswork. Oh, got to have it open this much to get this temperature on a regular basis, man. Set it and then focus on your food, and you don't have to worry. It takes the fire management equation or the variables of the fire management out of your cook. Helps you make better food.
I mean, for example, yesterday we had some friends over, and I woke up. I'm like, okay, I actually wanted to try the party ribs because everyone's like, oh, the party ribs. I've seen the recipes going on. I'm like, this is an easy way to make a recipe so I can post it online. But I'm like, let me just try it. But the same thing. I put them on the grill in the morning, put them on the Traeger, let it start smoke. I was doing some chicken and a whole chicken and chicken thighs. But at the same time, while that's going, I don't have to worry about it. So I came back in the house, started doing the rice, started doing potato salad. I was making some shrimp. So all these things, I'm making 3 meals inside while the ribs are smoking. As long as my timer goes off, all right, let me check the temperature. Then I'm like, okay, I got an hour left. All right, let me put the chicken on. And it makes it so much easier than having to stand outside and consistently go back and check. Oh, it's too windy. Oh man, you know what I mean? Things like that you have to worry about. So for me as well, I have friends that are like, oh, what grill should I get? I'm like, well, look, if you want to just do regular steaks, burgers, gas is good, right? If you're gonna go, or just the basic charcoal. But if you want to try doing a little bit more advanced recipes, but you're not, I guess not, or you're afraid to, or you're not 100% confident in doing something like a brisket or doing something like a 10-pound pork butt, the pellet grill, that's kind of what got me into doing like the bigger pieces of meat, the bigger cuts, rather than just doing something basic, was because I felt like I had a little more confidence in doing those cooks at a longer period of time, because then, whatever, it's cooking for 10 hours, but I'm inside half the time. I'm checking it, every hour, making sure I have pellets and making sure I'm spritzing, but at the same time, I'm still good.
Yeah. But that's the thing about the new pellet grills, though. You actually don't have to have a gas grill, because those pellet grills go high enough. Like the Green Mountain grills, they go 550. You throw some grill grates on there. Those grill grates retain heat. You can get those grill grates in the 600 to 650 range. And you can grill steaks, anything, all day long at 650. Then you start doing that reverse sear, the Chad Ward technique, where you smoke it and then sear it off, and that's my favorite steak. And that's my wife's favorite.
I will say I did a recipe for a bison steak company out of Quebec, and it was the first time trying the reverse sear, and I hooked up the meter to it, reverse seared it, and then I cast iron, got just a little bit of the sear on it in the cast iron on the grill, but I used like a Caribbean style, like a culantro butter, but it was just like, I actually really enjoyed the taste of it because you smoke it, and I never even thought about like that reverse sear until I saw the videos, and I'm like, this is actually a good method. I mean, steak wise, I gotta say Anthony has the best steak I've ever tasted. When we went to that competition that weekend in May, for what was that competition called?
It was actually an SEA competition at the KSL competition
Oh.
in Salt Lake City.
But
Yeah.
that steak, I mean, myself and Killam, we both said that was like the best steak we've ever tried. So maybe I might need to get some grill grates and run for some competition with Anthony.
Yeah,
you go.
it's crazy. Yeah, they showed up to the competition. I met them at the night. So it was a Traeger event. So we met. I guess Sean, I didn't quite meet you until the next day.
Yeah,
But
because I didn't end up at the factory tour.
yeah. So yeah, we met, and I told them, I was like, hey, come down, and we're cooking a steak competition if you don't got anything in the morning. So they came down. They came and hung out with me all morning. I cooked them up my practice steak and was just kind of see how we're hitting that day, and they really enjoyed it, and apparently the judges enjoyed it that weekend as well too, because that's the same weekend I got my golden ticket. So
Oh, you did.
yeah, so
I guess that was a good steak to try then.
yeah, it was really cool. And they, Sean and the whole crew that I was hanging out with over there at Traeger when I was at the event, because I was unable to attend the awards because we had to go over there to do the stuff over at Traeger. So I was sitting there, and then I get my message, and I look at these dudes, and like, bro, I just won my golden ticket. And it was badass. I think they were more excited for me than I was excited for myself. The whole place went crazy. Diva Q lost her mind. She was screaming as well when I told her to. So it was an awesome day in general, and you guys made that special. I just wanted to tell you thank you for doing that as well. It's cool.
Hey, it's not every day you get to try a steak and then all of a sudden it wins the golden ticket. Like,
right?
I mean, it was a cool experience because that was my first experience in that competition world, just seeing how everything is. I've been in Canada. We do a lot of they just call them rib fests. So you have a lot of the big companies, but it's pretty much just touring. Yeah, they have their trophies, but it's a different atmosphere because everyone's just selling ribs or selling chicken. So seeing it more on the standpoint of the event that you're at, it was interesting. And even still, like we were telling you, like, okay, I'm actually surprised there's a lot of Traegers there. And I think some of the Traeger guys went down, and people didn't even know who they were.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you guys are from because they were just like in the zone.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to hear, but it was interesting to see the amount of Traegers that and even other pellet grills that were there that people were using, because as you see online, some people are like, oh, it's a Betty Crocker oven for making ribs. But hey, if I can make ribs better than anyone, I don't care.
Yeah. I'll cook it in a hasty bake. You know what I
mean? No, so this is what I like about pellet grills. One, obviously, everybody who's kind of in the barbecue community, except for your purists that are like 2% in the barbecue world, have a pellet grill and they enjoy using it. But it's also a good transition. I'm slowly seeing it too. Wives are actually like taking their cooking outside as well. You're expanding that into your family. Like you said, you have a kid, you feel safer teaching them how to cook on a pellet grill than you would like a gas grill or open fire, right? Because it's much safer. So you can actually bring the youth into it as well and just say, hey, you can cook great barbecue as well, and the pellet grill makes it a little bit easier and safer, right? We're not saying that it's 100% safe if you don't clean it. Could be a whole nother scenario, but it's the safer way to get younger people into cooking for sure.
The amount of times I almost burnt my eyebrows off trying to light a gas grill because the igniter won't go. So you got to throw a match and turn the gas at the right time. Trust me. So it's definitely a lot safer.
Well, how many times have you shaved your arms because you burned your hair on your arms? It's like when you're using live fire, it's like, oh, half that arm's gone.
My hands are full of burn marks from just like grilling, and you don't even realize until after. And then you're like, oh, like I just burnt the edge of my finger or burnt the edge of my hand, or my arm.
You tap a grate for 2 seconds and it's like, wow, okay, that hurt, but got to keep going.
Yeah, for sure. But John, let's talk a little bit about your style. So we're talking about cooking on a grill. You're not obviously you're not a competition barbecue person. You're more at home, YouTube media and stuff like that. Let's talk about your cooking style, because you're not very traditional. That's why I wanted you on the show, because everybody can cook, just a like a Kansas City, St. Louis style rib. But you're adding flair to it with that Caribbean vibe, and Caribbean food is such a niche. You can do it really well, or you can really mess it up because the flavor profiles are so strong. Let's just talk about your cooking style on that grill, on your grills.
I guess Caribbean food in general, whether it's Latin Caribbean or like the English speaking Caribbean or the French or Dutch Caribbean, we all pretty much use the same ingredients, but at the same time, we have a lot of influences. Like, for instance, I'm from Trinidad, so our cultural influence or ethnic influence then are people that were brought by, by the Spanish as from Africa. People were brought from by the British that were Indian, Chinese, Portuguese. So we have a lot of different colonial roots: French, Spanish, British. Then you have everyone else that immigrated to the island that were either brought as slaves, indentured servants, or just people seeking refuge, over 100 years ago. Our food is a mixture of all of that. So, you might have techniques from people of African descent or Indian descent or Spanish descent or French descent, and we just kind of incorporated everything into our food. So, like, in the sense of there's no one set, everyone pretty much eats the same thing. So everyone kind of cooks very similar. So with me, when I'm cooking, I like to add that extra flavor. We love spicy food. I would say a lot of Caribbean food, there is either, it's very medium or it's really spicy. So for me, I love anything spicy. So I love to add, if I'm doing a marinade, I'll use a lot of fresh habaneros or Scotch bonnet peppers. Garlic, onions. A lot of, I guess, our food is not so much of our marinades, is not so much of a dry rub. You're seeing now more Caribbean barbecue chefs. Yes, we're making our own dry rubs, or we're using a dry rub instead of a marinade. But typically, typically Caribbean barbecue or Trinidadian barbecue, we would season chicken with, say, a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of our green seasoning marinade, which is green onions, cilantro, onions, garlic, hot peppers, all blended into one paste, and we'll add that in. Then we'll just add, different all-purpose seasonings, Worcestershire sauce, different things. Add everything in there and let that marinate. Usually let it marinate overnight, and then we'll cook it on the grill. Now, our sauce, a lot of times too, some people would be ketchup, mustard, soy sauce, hot sauce, a little bit of that same green seasoning. What a lot of people like to do is we'll open half a can of beer, put that into the sauce, mix it around, kind of warm it up a little bit, and then that's our base. That's like the most simplified Trinidadian cooking. Then you go to like Jamaica, where jerk is the
king.
The king. So for me, I've obviously, growing up in Toronto, you're amongst a lot of different islands. So for me, jerk, I love jerk. I made jerk chicken yesterday. I can pretty much make it every single day. So I'll take the elements of Jamaica and put it in there. I'll take elements of Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, put it in there. Take the elements of Trinidad, put it in there, and then just kind of bring everything together. And then that's kind of the flavor of my barbecue, but also move outside of barbecue, because you said, there's a lot of things. A lot of my recipes aren't only just barbecue, as some other channels maybe. I do a lot of stuff you can do in the air fryer, where it's like, it's pretty much a barbecue, but it's for that dude that comes home at 10 o'clock at night that just wants a piece of chicken or wants wings or whatever. Pop in the air fryer, you're done in 30 minutes. Or I'll do traditional Caribbean recipes. So at the end of the day, I always try to bring the essence of Caribbean seasonings into whatever I cook, whether it's mac and cheese, whether it's, potato salad, whether it's rice, anything that I would cook, I always try to bring my background into it and just kind of put a little bit of twist. So like part of the channel is a fusion on Caribbean food with Latin food, with Middle Eastern food, with down south, as I live in Florida, understanding, Southern barbecue, or understanding, barbecue from Carolina. So living in Toronto, to be honest, I had no idea, like Memphis, North Carolina, like there's so many nuances of barbecues. So for instance, I did a pulled pork, but I did it with more of like a Carolina style vinegar sauce, but I added habaneros, I added Scotch bonnets into it, just to add a little bit of flavor, add a little bit of different of that kick to it, which I think when people try my food, they're like, oh, this tastes good. It's not exactly the same, but they get a little bit of that similar food elements, but at the same time, it's kind of, just completely different from what they've normally tried.
Right. There's a little bit of that island twist, and people don't realize is like you talk about the history of barbecue, and everybody thinks it comes from down south. It actually started in the Caribbean. Barbacoa. It was like because they were grilling whole animals and they were grilling over open fire, and there's a lot of different.
Well, Jamaican jerk comes from, and the cooking method comes from the indigenous tribes of Jamaica. And
Right.
I mean, throughout the Caribbean, we all have very similar indigenous tribes, but that whole the allspice, which is what uses it's allspice, or they call it pimento, which is the plant, which is the allspice berries, which is found in Jamaica. That's the essence of jerk. So the method of cooking it, the Maroons, which were the slaves that left and went to the mountains to live, they met with the Tainos, which were the indigenous people of Jamaica at the time, and they showed them this is the way we cook our meat, where it was a hog or whatever it is, and using the allspice berries and putting the pimento plant leaves on top of the chicken, similar to what they do when they make lechon or roast pig in Hawaii. Same indigenous traditions where you put the leaves, and that the leaves and the wood from the allspice is really what gives jerk chicken that flavor. I see a question. What's the best store-bought jerk rub? Best, I will say Walker's Wood is my favorite. It's probably one of the first store-bought ones I've used. Online, there's a company called Spice Jamaica that's really good. If you check my channel, I have how to make your own wet and dry marinade as well. I've actually, as we're getting into summer, I'm probably going to upload a few new videos. But if you're just going to go to the store, the grocery, go in the Caribbean aisle or the Latin aisle, most likely you'll see Walker's Wood. They're probably the biggest brand. If you don't have Walker's Wood, Grace is another big Caribbean brand that you should be able to get pretty much anywhere.
Killer Hogs has a good jerk seasoning as well. And there's the company that makes all my rubs. His name's Lee Hill, Big Daddy Hills. He made me a Jamaican jerk bottle once. It was so good, but if he would have been standing in front of me, I just wanted to punch him so hard. It was so hot. It ripped my guts apart, but I couldn't stop eating it. It was so good. It was just like I killed a whole plate of chicken. And and then I died for 2 days.
And sometimes too, like I would say some jerk marinades, I find there's too much heat and not enough flavor. That's why, like, I would say something like a Walker's Wood is pretty good because it's supposed to be spicy, but for someone that does need spice, it's spicy. But for someone that eats spicy, it's kind of like more of a medium. But you're still getting a lot of that flavor through it, which I think when you're doing something like jerk chicken or any kind of Caribbean barbecue, a lot of times people do it hot and fast. But if you take the time and you smoke it, it adds so much extra flavor,
and cook it and smoking it mellows out the heat in the rub as well. The longer it cooks, it seems to mellow out the spice factor.
And when you go to a Jamaican restaurant, or if you're in a city like New York or Toronto or even Florida, we have just as how in the South you would have guys cooking with their drum smokers outside, like a food truck. You'll see oil drum cookers on the side of the road in front of the restaurant in New York or Toronto. And that's the low and slow. And I mean, that's how you cook barbecue back home. You'll see people on the side of the road just selling food. And it's always a big oil drum smoker and chicken's being cooked. A lot of people home too in the Caribbean, they will actually steam their chicken, like steam it a little bit. So you'll season it with with your seasoning, but you'll kind of like parboil it, steam it maybe for 20 minutes. So when you're cooking at that high velocity, you're just throwing the chicken on just to kind of get that color and finish it off, rather than putting raw chicken on consistently.
Yeah, we were in Belize, and this guy had a trailer, and it was mostly chicken wire that he was cooking over coals with. But I'm like, I got to try that chicken. I got to try that. It was absolutely delicious. And you were like, you'd get crucified in the United States for cooking that style in the open and whatnot for the health department, but I didn't care. That's was the best food
on the side of the road.
What I'm saying. Side of the road. Let's go. I'm down.
That is the best, I will say.
For sure. So what I've noticed about Caribbean cooking, and I'm going to take my hat off to you because it's not easy. You're literally cutting down everything, and then you're making, the marinade out of it, and you're reducing that and adding to that, and then you're taking the time to grill it, and then while you're grilling it, you're making a sauce. It's not an easy dish to make, and I'm taking my hats off to you because so much work goes on to it. And the biggest ingredient that I've learned in any Caribbean cooking, Jamaica, Trinidad, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, is they have a huge ingredient that goes into every meal that people forget here in America. They actually put love into it. They want to know that whoever they're serving it to is going to enjoy it, and they know that's their bonding time and their experience. Caribbean food is so good, but it's so hard to cook. And then that's why I kind of want to bring you on here too, is because your channel makes it, I shouldn't say easier, but you give
it's
more
easy.
of it.
I would say it's,
yeah.
I think
Easy for you. Yeah.
Obviously for me, it's easy. No, but
yeah,
it's once you have the right ingredients,
yeah,
it's straightforward. I think the harder things in Caribbean cooking, especially Trinidadian cooking, would be something more like our curries might be a little bit more complex. It's easy to do once you get it down pat, or like making our rotis and stuff like that. That's a little bit harder. I honestly can't make it. I'd buy it or get someone to make it for me. But like when you come to the barbecue, it's really about, the biggest thing is seasoning it and getting your right seasonings, and then letting it marinate. Like letting that sit overnight, a day, 2 days. Like the best jerk pork I've ever made, I've let it sit for like 3-4 days in the fridge, season it and just let it sit there. And I think that's the biggest thing with our food is another tip that we do, or another trick that I do, if I'm making leg and thighs, or even I made the whole chicken yesterday, I'll take a knife and just kind of poke little holes in it.
Jacquard it.
Yeah. So when you marinate it, you're gonna get that chicken. So not just, some people just put it underneath the skin. If you poke a bunch of little holes in it and then you let that marinade just soak in, when you're eating the chicken right down to the bone, you're still getting that flavor, and you're still getting it. It's not just, sometimes I hate when I get barbecue chicken at some places and you taste the barbecue on the top, on the skin,
on the outside,
or on the outside, and then the inside, when you get into it, especially like a thigh or a breast, and it's just plain, there's no flavor. And so it's like, I know some people, obviously restaurants, it's high turnover, but at the same time, if you're going to someone's house or a local mom and pop place, it's a turnoff for me, because I'm like, you're only getting, if it's wings, that's fine, because one bite you're done. Or a rib, you're getting right at the top, you're getting the flavor because it's being smoked. But when you get in something like barbecue chicken, I always find like when that flavor doesn't go down to the bone, it just gets tasteless, and then you're relying on sauce on top.
Yeah,
to dip it in.
And the best places are doing that, like you said, that 24-hour marinade for their chickens. If they're doing whole chickens, they got 55-gallon drums in their walk-in that's just soaking that chicken in, and it's like imparting all that flavor deep down to the bone, like you said, and then you get that bone that helps with the flavor. It's like you can't beat when you can get your meats marinated and sitting in that seasoning for like 12-24 hours. It's amazing.
Yeah, it makes a world of a difference. And even just like, even something basic like wings, it makes the world, I find it makes a world of a difference. And even if you're doing something, I tell people, like, if you're doing something like fried chicken, same thing. In the Caribbean, KFC, everyone loves KFC, and every island says their KFC is the best. But one thing that KFC in the Caribbean does is that they marinate their chicken for a long period of time in like a brine, in like a hot sauce brine. So same thing, when you eat KFC in the Caribbean, it goes right down to, like, the seasoning goes right down to the bone. So if you're at home and you're going to bake a chicken, or you're going to fry chicken, whether it's wings or legs and thighs or breasts, even still, marinate that chicken. The longer you marinate it, it's going to go into the bone. And then when you cook it, people are like, yo, this is amazing. And it's just that flavor is going through and throughout the meat.
When I get to a contest, the first thing I do is get that chicken in the brine. So then you're going to get, because if you're at 9 a.m., you're not starting that chicken until 11 the next day or 10:30 the next day. You're getting 24 or 25 hours of the chicken in the brine. And I think it helps tremendously. Sorry to cut you off, Anthony. I apologize.
No, you're good. That's a good tip. But like I was about to say, is like, now I'm jealous. I'm not a big fan of KFC. I'm just a big fan. But I was just in the DR, and I see the KFC, and Amanda was like, "Hey, do you want to go there?" I'm like, "Hell no!" But now I'm like, "Damn it, I should have went there."
You should have tried it, right? Every island
Yeah,
I've been to, I always
Yeah.
try. Like Jamaica KFC is really good. Trinidad, I would say Trinidad KFC is probably just not even just being because I'm Trinidadian. It is the best. Like, if you ever seen like
Really?
some of the sandwiches from that are popular now in North America are
Sure.
from because they were kind of created over there because it's more on the spicy side. So
Yeah.
it is good to try in different places because it's
Who would
definitely
have
different.
who would have thunk it, Anthony? It was like
Right.
try some fast food when you're in a different country. It's like I would have never thought
Right.
that. I never,
Right.
not in a million years.
Right. Because when you go to, let's be honest, when you go to any chains, it's usually very consistent worldwide. You can
Yeah.
go to a McDonald's in the Philippines, and it's going to be the same here. So I kind of had that
Right.
same thing thinking about KFC. I'm like, no, KFC's ass is where I live. I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I never eat KFC, and
Right.
I would think it's just depending on what it is. Like I know being from Canada and living in the States, yeah, McDonald's tastes exactly the same.
Mhm.
KFC pretty much tastes exactly the same. But then when you go outside of it and you go to different islands or different places, a lot of some of these fast food places have their own version. Like so in Canada, you can get poutine, which is
Mm.
fried
Oh,
gravy
really?
and cheese curds
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
McDonald's
Yeah.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
most restaurants. Popeyes in Canada has pretty much everywhere fast food would have poutine added to
Mm.
their menu. So there's a different thing. So sometimes I'm always intrigued to try fast food in different countries just because they might have something completely different on the menu that you'll never get, especially like if you go to Europe or Asia, you're probably going to find something that you're never going to see here in the States or in Canada. So it's always interesting to try.
Right. We're gonna get back. Logan's asking a bunch of questions from the Right on Cue podcast, but they're great question. He wants to know, do Caribbean cooks always marinate, Brian, or do they ever inject?
So I was never into the brine thing. I think in the sense of us seasoning. So we would either do like a marinade. I mean, technically that's like a brine,
Right.
and then or you would dry season. So if you're doing chicken and you just throw a bunch of spices in your chicken, you're still letting that marinate overnight, but I guess in a way it's a dry brine because you're leaving it in the fridge with your dry rub.
Mhm.
So there are chefs that I've seen that do the injection. I haven't done the injection. I think Anthony sold me on injection after trying his steak.
Oh, whoa, that's a tip. That's a tip. Whoa.
No,
That's a
oh,
tip.
sorry.
Yeah, baby. Pro
Sorry,
tip.
podcast.
Still in
Whoa.
that. Still in that.
That's
But
all good.
my bad. I
You're
apologize.
good.
There's a lot of guys injecting their steaks.
Yeah,
but
there
That's
is.
a
I-
common thing.
I think
Yeah.
with just with that tip, honestly, I don't know what he injected it with. I just saw I was the tip
No,
that was
don't worry about
given to
it.
me.
No, it's good. No, there's no need to go back on
But
it. People know I
I
do it.
think
It's
the only
good.
thing I've ever really done was turkey, just because it's such a
Okay.
big bird.
Yeah.
And I've injected it with like a butter sauce, but no, I think most people generally like the home cook or the average everyday Caribbean cook. It's always just like a marinade or like a dry brine.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest thing is just letting it sit overnight.
So with injections, I inject at my competition level, right? Because we're trying to pump as much flavor into one bite as you can. But at home cooking, I'm not a big fan of injecting it because it's too rich. There's too much flavor, and you can't really enjoy a whole meal. You're just like, oh, that one piece of chicken, it was great, but it was too much, and that's why I don't do it at home, and I don't recommend a cook really doing it at home unless it's something light. If you're doing like a chuck roast or something like that, don't go anything with any phosphates or anything like that. Just
Yeah.
hit it with
Yeah.
hit it with some
Yep.
beef broth. Inject with beef broth. If
Mhm.
Yeah.
you're doing turkey, just apple juice, something really light to add the moisture into it, but don't be aggressive with the seasonings at all, for sure.
And I guess
Yeah,
at the
those-
competition level, it's just that one bite, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're pushing all kinds of phosphates and everything to make it tender and trying to get flavor through it. So, but for home cook, I'm not saying don't inject, but if you do inject, use something light. Use something
Yeah,
simple. That's
stay
not
away
gonna.
from the phosphates for your family. I mean, that's great for barbecue and whatnot. But like Anthony says, he's injecting, and I do mostly. The only thing I inject at competitions is a brisket. My ribs, my pork, and my chicken all get brined for as long as possible. So, and that's something when we were the reserve world grand champion in pork, and it was a mistake that turned into a cooking technique where I brined my pork, and it did well that weekend because my pork was absolutely frozen solid when it at inspection. I got it to separate by 9 p.m., but it was in a brine the whole entire time, and that became a cooking technique for the rest of the time I did cook pork in competitions. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
It's interesting to, things like that. It happened in the air, but I was like, hey, that works, right?
right, exactly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and one other thing too with injecting, in your meats. You got to remember, folks. This is the thermal side of me talking. Is every time you poke a needle into a cut of meat, you're exposing it to bacteria. You're exposing
Yep.
it to foodborne illnesses. So that's why another thing too is I try to stay away from it at competition barbecue. To almost everything. I know everything is going to be over 200 degrees. Everything's going to be killed,
You'll be dead.
and then steak as well too. Everything's going to be killed in that too during the cooking process of that. But at home, if you're over there injecting stuff, you have to make sure your done temperatures are hit accurately, or you're possibly exposing yourself to foodborne illnesses. Just a pro tip, looking out for you guys.
No, it
So
makes sense, especially on the
Very
home
nice.
side of things, right? Even
yeah.
even cleanup. For
Mhm.
me, like a lot of people, and I know it's a big debate where everyone's like, "Oh, do you wash your meat or wash your chicken or whatever?" At the end of the day, I think for me, I look at it this way: my parents, my parents' parents, and their parents' have always, when you get chicken, you wash it, you clean it, any kind of poultry, depending. And my take is, and I have friends that work in that warehouse world of like industrial, where they see what goes on in factories. They're like, we recommend at least pat it dry or wash it, but the health guidelines say no, because you can spread foodborne illnesses and stuff like that. For me, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it in the sink that's empty. I'm doing it away from everything, and the second I'm finished, I'm
Yeah.
squeezing Clorox spray on my
Rocks.
sink,
Yeah.
Yeah.
wiping down everything. I always pour like boiling hot water down my sink just to kill any bacteria. And that's the easiest way, right? And I think that's why they recommend don't people do it, because some people just don't clean up properly. And then your
Right.
kid's gonna go and
Yep.
touch that counter. They're gonna get salmonella on their hands. They're gonna go play with the toys. So it's like, even if you are going to that extra step of washing or cleaning, whatever it is, you have to make sure that you clean up properly. And just like you said, those illnesses are gonna be there, or you don't wash your hands, you touch up everything else in your house, and all of a sudden there's
Yeah.
some people getting sick.
Yeah, food safety is huge. Jesse always gives me
Yeah.
shit all the time too. He's like, "Dude, you're one of the cleanest cooks I ever seen." Like, he comes over to my tent, he's like, "It's clean every time I come
Yeah.
over here." I'm like, "Yeah, because one, I don't want to get myself sick, and two, I don't want to get anybody else sick. There's nothing else that will destroy your cooking faster than
Yep.
somebody having a
Yep.
great meal and they get sick. And everybody be like,
Yep.
"Don't eat at Anthony's house. He got me sick." So you want to
Dude,
make
Even
sure that
I'm
you're.
I'm exactly the same way. My mom always cleaned up the kitchen with Clorox.
Mhm. Yep.
Nothing was surviving where mom was cooking
Mhm.
chicken. So
And even
Right.
for myself, like I grew up, my brother, he was vegetarian. So understanding cross
I'm so sorry that
contamination.
you lost him. So sorry you lost him.
Understanding cross contamination, or my wife, she's pescatarian, so literally she only eats seafood. So like understanding like cross contamination, or like you might have a family member that doesn't eat pork or doesn't eat beef. So for me, I always understood cross contamination. I'm not using the same spoon if I'm making this to mix with that, or someone that's like lactose intolerant. So that's another thing I think a lot of people kind of don't think about in the back of their head, right? But it's something to, when you get to the level of like, if you're in a competition, or 2 weeks ago I did a competition at Valencia College Walt Disney World for culinary. It was a food competition, it was a fusion competition, and we are in industrial kitchen, and you had people, they said, there are some people in the audience that have allergies. It's kind of similar like a chopped, but we weren't on a time limit.
Hmm.
And you kind of have to pay attention to cross contamination. And it is a school, so they have signs everywhere telling you, because for their students, about cross contamination is that. But it's kind of like things that you got to put in the back of your head, especially when you're going to that level, making sure that you keep your shit clean.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly. Well, so we're hitting the hour mark here, Sean. But what is something that you would tell our listeners, like getting into Caribbean cooking, smoking it on a pellet grill? What's some pro tips that you'd give them, and maybe even a dish that to have them go and look up to, have an intro into, Caribbean style cooking?
I guess my tip would be with using a pellet grill, don't be afraid of it. Don't let it intimidate you. I think a lot of people, especially if you're doing something like ribs for a low and slow, or like a pork butt, just don't let it intimidate you. Watch, I would say, even before the very first time um, I did party ribs yesterday, and I never did it before. And I was like, I watched probably like 10 videos just to see different techniques, different what this one was doing, what that one was doing, just to get an idea. And then obviously I added my own twist to it. But at the same time, it was just, research it. If you're not familiar with it, just research it, watch a few videos, understand how they're cooking it, and then just kind of make it your own. You can, I mean, obviously, if you see something from like Traeger and you follow the recipe tooth and nail, it's going to come out good because you're just following it step by step, which is fine. But if you want to try your own twist and you want to, shake it up a bit, just don't be intimidated. Try a bunch of different recipes, put them together. And Caribbean cooking, I would say start with barbecue, start with chicken. It's our most common thing. Start with chicken. You can do jerk. You can just do like a Caribbean style. You can do, if you guys are familiar with, in Florida, we have them. It's called Pollo Tropical. In California, it's called El Pollo Loco. Very similar kind of rotisserie style, grilled charcoal style grilled chicken. It's very simple with like a mojo marinade chicken. You can get like mojo sauce pretty much at any grocery store. But yeah, like a orange marinade with some, maybe like something like a Badia complete seasoning, a little bit of sazon, and just kind of marinate it that way. Or use like my typical Caribbean barbecue is a green seasoning with lots of cilantro and culantro, garlic, salt, pepper, some all-purpose seasoning, and just make a good sauce, and just kind of sauce it up right towards the end, and then you just get that flavor. I think the biggest thing is just trying the recipes, but chicken's the easiest thing to make. Like, don't go and try to make a whole roast pig right off the bat, or a brisket right off the
Yeah.
bat. But I will say chicken's probably your best bet to start with. Then go maybe ribs, and just add a little bit of flair to it. I think one of the first things I did when I did ribs on a pellet grill, I did jerk ribs and rib tips, and it came out a little extra spicy, but I didn't mind it. But it was good. It was a learning curve, but it was good because I made my first time. It was first time making my own jerk dry rub, because at the time there was not a lot of jerk dry rubs out. So pretty much added everything, substitute a few things, but it was pretty much a jerk dry rub, and it came out really good. So I think
Let's tell the listeners the name of your YouTube channel so they can pick up some of those tricks,
yeah.
and
So if
techniques.
you are
They
seeing,
can.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I
Oh,
just want the people to know. Let's use your professional advice and kind of learn from what you're doing on YouTube, so that they can kind of shorten that learning curve.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Appreciate it. It's WhattsIndepot. If you're watching the video, it's next to my name. What's in the pot? YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You'll see majority of my videos. YouTube, there's a lot more long form videos. I haven't done a lot of long form YouTube videos in a while. But if you're on Instagram and TikTok, I'll pretty much upload almost every other day. I try to put everything back onto YouTube as well as in YouTube Shorts. But yeah, if you're on Instagram, TikTok, follow me. But yeah, and if you have questions, just send me a question or a comment on YouTube. Anything, I always respond. If you have any questions on the recipes or anything like that, or even if you have your own tips, let me know, because I'm always willing to try something new.
Nice.
Heck yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for spending your Sunday with us here, and just giving us all these tips and just chatting. You know what I mean? And then also, you forgot a little shout out too on where they can listen to you as well.
Oh, so if you are on social media, go to DJTRINISHOTTA, DJ Trinishata. That's my Instagram, social media. There's links in my profile. Or if you do any kind of Apple Podcast, Apple Podcast, or any podcast app that you use, iHeart, I think Amazon Podcast, just search DJ Trini Shota Radio, and pretty much I did a mix on Friday on SiriusXM. By Monday, it's usually uploaded. So usually anything I DJ, whether it's a mixtape or whether it's a radio show, is always uploaded there. So you can always just download it to your phone or play it on your streaming device.
And I love cheating and downloading somebody else's mix and play it for long form.
There you go. When you got to go to take a break, get to the restroom,
you know what?
get some food.
Download a bunch. I always download a bunch of mixes on like SoundCloud or like on the iPhone podcast app.
Good.
And if I'm barbecuing, I'll play some of mine, but I'll play some of my other friends'.
It's great.
I guess as DJs, you like to hear what other DJs are playing and
exactly
their cuts and their scratches and stuff like that. So I always like to listen to other DJs. And to be honest, I hate hearing myself. I don't know why. I like when I hear back, like if I see someone watching my video or they're like, "Oh, we're watching a YouTube video," I'm like, or we're listening to your mix. Sometimes I hate hearing myself back, and I don't know why, because I think I critique. I'm like, I should have said this. I said, at this point, I should have cleaned this up. So it is what it is. But I do appreciate listening to other DJs.
Yeah, welcome to my world. I have to listen to myself coming into the podcast, and I feel like one of those professional athletes talking about myself in the third person. It's so weird to me. So I understand.
For sure. Yeah. Like I'm kind of the same way though, John. I can't watch my videos. I can listen to the podcast. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem, but I just won't ever watch this video stream. I'll never watch. It's just weird like that.
Because you want to critique yourself,
Exactly.
I could have done better.
Jesse does have the perfect drop voice to do.
Yeah, if you need a drop, he'll hook you up.
I'm thinking of him. I'm like, ew.
Yeah.
Like
well, okay. So today my voice is deeper than it normally is because I am so tired from 3 days of the barbecue competition. Yeah. So it's even deeper today. So it's crazy. Yeah, I do a lot of voice work for radio and TV in the area. So it's fun.
Yep. Well, cool. All right, let's get out of here, man. Let's go enjoy our Sundays. But yeah, make sure you follow the Pitmasters podcast on any social media platform. You go ahead and, like we said, 100 times, go just press the download button. Even if you're not going to listen to the podcast, we just need those numbers. So just download it. Then also feel free to follow the new website, pitmasterspodcast.com. We dropped it's just Pitmasters Podcast. Make sure you go follow that. But other than that, you guys have a great week, and let's go and enjoy our Sunday.
Yep. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys for having me.
Yep.
We call it Thermapen 1, the first true 1 second.
That's a lie. Wrong ad, guys. Here we go.